Reaching this 50th episode feels like a major accomplishment. And let's just let it really sink in. Because I was listening to a podcast on what else? Podcasting. And this is what they said. Only 10% of podcasters make it to episode 50. 10%.
That's nuts.
And 90% of podcasts don't make it past episode 3.
Okay, that's the one that really blows me away. Like, you go through all this effort to do this. Like, I felt pretty confident we were going to get to at least 10. You know what I mean? Like, just because, like, to go through all this to do it. But 50, I didn't even think about that. So that is amazing to me that 90% of podcasts don't even make it past episode 3. That's bananas.
Well, and I think because it's a lot. There's a lot that goes into doing this. Yeah. And I think because you and I can split the load.
Yep.
You know, I think that makes it easier. And also, we are awesome.
So. Well, there's that.
Welcome to Drinks with the Girls. Conversations for women over 40 around connection, change, and the power of female friendship. Living well with stories to tell. I'm Karen, and this is Lisa.
We are moms and solopreneurs stepping into our own, diving into real conversations about things that matter to women in midlife.
We're here to spill the tea on everything that affects women in their 40s and beyond. Topics like loss and grief, changing relationships, launching kids, menopause, and reinventing ourselves in midlife. We are here to tackle it all.
Connect with us through a blend of our lived experiences, our friendship, the memory of our moms, plus a collection of real stories, honest conversations, and engaging interviews that will make women over 40 feel seen and remind them that they're not alone on this journey called life. Let's go.
Welcome to our 50th episode of Drinks with the Girls. Wait. Wah! Woo! And the crowd goes
wild. Okay, first off, say that again because I just need to hear it one more time. I can't even believe it.
Drum roll, please. Welcome to our 50th episode of Drinks with the Girls. I am Karen.
And I'm astounded, Lisa. Like, seriously, when we first, did you ever in a million years think we'd be sitting here recording our 50th episode? And I realize all you, like, famous podcasters out there, you're like, yeah, I'm at 350. Like, I get it. But Karen's going to throw some stats out on this episode that I had not heard before. And I was like, dang, we're not so bad.
No. We are celebrating big time tonight with this episode. And actually, yes, I did think we would reach our 50th because I had literally no doubt that we were going to just keep going because we have things to say and not just because we like to hear ourselves talk, but you all, our listeners, you have given us feedback that you like to hear what we have to say. So, you know, I feel like this community has just grown and grown and grown, and that's because of you, our listeners. So thank you so much. This is pretty fantastic. We are definitely toasting this journey tonight, and Lisa's going to give me some shade because tonight I am I'm toasting.
Just the one thing you got to bring me down about, my Lord, tonight of all nights.
She's going to give me some shade about my Michelob Ultra.
Oh, for the love.
Drinking tonight, but we are celebrating the hell out of ourselves, and we're going to talk about life in our 50s because it's our 50th episode. We're going to talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. So what are you drinking tonight, friend?
So I am working my way through the panoply of stuff that I got to just kind of try things. This is a Recess, and it's blood orange, hemp and adaptogen infused sparkling water, calm, cool, collected, which I kind of need because Karen's been listening to me today. I've had one of those days. I was traveling yesterday and inexplicably all 3 of my suitcases, and before you're like, biatch, why are you traveling with 3 suitcases? It was to a conference and I had to bring a bunch of stuff for my company, so don't throw the shade yet. They lost all 3 of them. So it's been a bit of a day. So I was looking forward to calm, cool, and collected. So hopefully this will help me.
I'm surprised you don't have something stronger in that glass, girl.
I didn't have time before I yelled at the airline and then jumped on here.
Got it.
It's all good. I could bust out the Michelob Ultra. It's good. Actually, you know what I have? But I was feeding it to the slugs who I thought were attacking my garden, but it turns out it's an errant chicken. Is Pabst Blue Ribbon, which some people might consider sacrilege, but I feed it to the slugs so they die and they don't chew on my veggies. But I think I'm just going to get my chicken drunk at this point, so we'll see what happens. Anyhow.
Well, we are recording this on Cinco de Mayo.
That's right.
And we are going over to Tony's cousin's house. She and her husband just moved into our neighborhood, so we're going to go over there for some Cinco de Mayo food. So anyway, yes, that's one of the reasons I'm having a Michelob Ultra, because I don't know what she has in store for us.
All right. Perhaps a cerveza?
Perhaps. But let's get back to
focus
the topic. So yes, reaching this 50th episode feels like a major accomplishment. And let's just let it really sink in. Because I was listening to a podcast on podcasting. And this is what they said. Only 10% of podcasters make it to episode 50. 10%.
That's nuts.
And 90% of podcasts don't make it past episode 3.
Okay, that's the one that really blows me away. Like, you go through all this effort to do this. Like, I felt pretty confident we were going to get to at least 10. You know what I mean? Like, just because, like, to go through all this to do it. But 50, I didn't even think about that. So that is amazing to me that 90% of podcasts don't even make it past episode 3. That's bananas.
Well, and I think because it's a lot. There's a lot that goes into doing this. Yeah. And I think because you and I can split the load.
Yep.
You know, I think that makes it easier. And also we are awesome.
So. Well, there's that. But honestly, like, just keeping it real, I don't know that I would have been able to do this much on my own. Like, I do think that that's a little bit of our secret sauce. I mean, just kind of the pedantic thing of, like, it splits the workload. But I do think that just special sauce that we have helps in so many other ways to, like, think of topics and so anyhow.
Absolutely. And I definitely would not have made it this far. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't have all the things that our whole podcast has. You know, the Pod Squad, the Pinterest, the Facebook, the website, the Instagram, all the things, because it's just a lot. Anyway, so we thought it would be fun to talk about some of our reflections on being in our 50s to celebrate our 50th episode.
Let's talk about, now that we've talked about what surprised us about our podcast, let's pull it back to the 50s and let's talk about what surprised us in our 50s. And I was thinking a lot about this today. And the one thing I kind of came to mind was, like, so I'll be 57 this summer. I'm 56. Karen and I are the same age, like 2 months apart. And I was like, I'll be 57, 3 more years in my 50s. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm getting old. It was like, damn, this has been one of my favorite decades. I don't know if I'm ready to give it up yet, which I thought was kind of cool because it wasn't about getting older. It was just like, this has been super cool. But I did notice our good friend and bestie, Hardy Har, Brooke Shields, call us Brooke, we still want you to call us, is celebrating her 60th birthday this year because I saw in her Instagram, and she is celebrating by doing all sorts of stuff. She's like, it's going to be the year of the adventure, and she wants her followers to, like, tell her kind of the things to do. So I do feel like it's kind of the decade of adventure. For sure.
I love that. And I mean, you're only turning 57. So, you know.
I got time. We got time.
You got time.
Yep.
Do you want to know what surprised me?
I would love to know what surprised you about your 50s.
Well, I think that it's this sense of freedom that I feel. I'm definitely more confident. And I'm less concerned about other people's opinions. I started, unhooking from that, I think, last decade in my 40s. Just not as concerned with the external validation. And I guess, I don't know if that surprised me or not, but I didn't realize, like, when I was in my 20s and 30s, like, I just didn't realize women in their 50s had this level of just, I don't give a forkness.
Totally. And so much
You know?
fun too. I mean, I wasn't
So
just
much
like,
fun.
they are, I mean, it wasn't like, oh, they're all a bunch of old people, but it was just like, it just doesn't get any press. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you have kids,
Yep.
and then fast forward 25 years and you're a grandma. Like, there's no discussion of like the in-betweenness at all. And I don't know if they're just trying to keep it under wraps because it's awesome or what. Because, dang, I mean, I would have gotten on this train a lot sooner had I known that the decade of no more forks to give is like my favorite.
And, I have to say, too, just that level of self-assuredness, that it's a thing, because many women over 50 report this same level of increased self-confidence and just, kind of focusing on what truly matters to them. So it's not just us, but there's also another thing. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but my 50s are way less fun than my 40s. And I don't want to, I guess fun maybe is not the right word, but my 40s were wild. Like, I was doing things nonstop, concerts and, festivals and vacations and girls' trips and, book clubs. Actually, that turned into wine club, but just going out and doing a lot more things. So I guess there was just more energy involved in my 40s. And just like, it's ironic because there was a lot of chaos going on in my life, like internally and externally, just because my kids they were teenagers, preteens and teens. And, that was chaos. And then the internal chaos of just what was happening in my life. But yeah, my 40s were way more active. Lisa and I were just talking about this woman that we're going to have on the podcast who lives in Alaska, and she wears stilettos in the snow. And I used to wear heels in my 40s. 50s, not so much. But it's like, we would go out, we would dress up, we would just, I don't know, have more fun. I'm going on a tangent here. Sorry.
You aren't, but I did want to give a shout out to my friend Kate, who will be on the podcast, who I can now call my friend. I'm so excited. This is going to be a great
Kate.
episode. Yes. Okay, so I want to go back to something you said about your 40s, because this is where you and I kind of differ because of our life experience, right? Because the 40s were my decade of little kids. Raising littles, right? Because I had my son when I was 39 and my daughter when I was 42. So I was doing the diapers and all the things. So I'm like listening to you say this going, yeah, there was...
There was none of that happening.
There was none of that happening. Now we were traveling everywhere, but that was because we lived overseas. But very, very different. And I mean, I was happy. It was really great to have kids. A lot going on just in terms of like the chaos with just my life and trying to figure out literally where we were going to be located and all that. But it was definitely very different in terms of yours. I think for me with the 50s, like I was thinking about this the other day when it comes to anxiety, right? And trying to figure out the times in my life when I was able to like get a better handle on my anxiety. And I might be talking about this because, full disclosure, my anxiety medicine is somewhere between Seattle and Eugene right now on a plane. Yay. But I remember consciously, like a few years ago, just thinking about anxiety. And that's definitely been a lifelong battle for me. And just going, I am so tired of having this rule my life. I am so tired of being anxious. I'm so tired of worrying about stuff. I'm just over it. And it was like I made this decision. And not that I just like clicked my heels and everything was done, but I do feel like that was a big moment for me when I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to let this have power over me anymore. I'm tired of worrying about everything that can go wrong and like what's going to happen and this and that and the other. And I do feel like that was really symbolic of like my early 50s, is just really gaining some control over things and just going, you know what? Like this is about me and what I want. And I am so sick and tired of putting not only people's needs first, but just people's opinions, people's thoughts, people's stress, people's on and on and on and on. Just everybody else's crap on my shoulders. And I kind of just wanted to stand on my own stress. Like I remember just kind of very consciously getting to that point. And I think that's been a hallmark for sure of this decade for me.
That's wild. There's two things I want to talk about. First is, I think I've had the most anxiety in my life probably in the past few years. Like my mid 50s has brought the most anxiety for me. And I think a lot of it has to do with, well, so many things. You know, menopause is one thing, because I love to blame menopause and the patriarchy on everything. Patriarchy gives me so much anxiety these days too.
True that.
But I think because my life is so much more relaxed now than it was in my unhinged 40s, that I have more time to really stop, and I have to deal with things that give me anxiety, right? I have more time to think. Whereas in my 40s, I felt like I was just kind of in that survival mode place that we get to a lot of times. My name is Karen Shatafian, and I am a shameless coffee addict and empowerment coach for women, and my love language is authenticity. My mission is helping women unapologetically design a life they're in love with. Because what the hell are we waiting for? My website, KarenShatafian.com, has all my coaching packages and free offers like my Midlife Reclamation Guide. In it, you'll find tools to help you decide how to create the most inspired and empowered version of yourself and your life. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram talking about ways women can show up for themselves after decades of showing up for everyone else. Join me as we throw off the shackles and live our best freaking lives. See the show notes for all the details. Cheers.
It kind of reminds me of when I've talked to people that have stopped drinking, and they talk about being able to sit with the anxiety of being in a crowded room without having a drink in their hand. And just really feeling those feelings and having to kind of go through that piece. I think for me, I have suffered from like crippling anxiety since college. So I've had a long, tortuous journey with anxiety, and maybe that's why I felt a little bit of the relief.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, when we get to this stage in life, that's when and we talk about this a lot, the point where we draw that line in the sand and say, no more. I'm not signing up for this anymore.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's, the place that you got to. And I think, what you were talking about with your 40s versus my 40s, what it makes me think of is, and such a good point you bring up, it's like my kids were, becoming more independent. So as my kids were becoming more independent, I was getting more of my freedom back. Yeah. And I was like, oh, heck yeah. I forgot what this felt like.
Yeah. Also, in your 50s, you just kind of become really aware of what really, truly actually matters. Yeah, it becomes easier to figure that out. And I think for me, I worry that I'm going the other way, right? That I just have no patience for people or things and stuff that irritate me.
I think that's such a good thing, though. I really do, because I talk to a lot of women. That's what I do all day, and you're not alone. I think the older we get, the less we put up with. And sorry, I totally interrupted you.
Because you're not going to take it anymore. No, and I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, yes, agree. But I worry that I have so little patience for the bullshit that I'm going to turn into this cranky old lady.
You're going to be alone.
Like
nobody's
really
going to be around you.
Yeah, like really entire plane full of people that just got told that they're people with tight connections, and could they please just stay in their seats so people can get by, but they all get up anyways?
Okay. People on airplanes are not their best selves.
What the hell is wrong with you?
People on airplanes are not their best selves.
It's like, that's the kind of stuff that I just lose my mind. So it's not that I want to put up with more. I just think in the back of my mind is like, is this how an old person starts, where you're crotchety and you literally like everything pisses you off? And I may be just like feeling some of the boundary loss with my dad, which is another one. I know we've been saying we're going to do that episode for forever, but we're really going to do it. But, I just see like how little patience he has, or flexibility or tolerance for
Yes.
anything.
It's the flexibility and the tolerance.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that diminishes. Yes.
Yeah. And so I think that's what it is maybe the flexibility piece that I see is getting a little fried with me. And that's a muscle that I want to keep exercising. Like, I don't want to be just stuck in my ways. So I'm trying to really thread the needle between don't care what you think and okay, I can be flexible. Like, I can deal with this. Like, yes, my luggage is somewhere above the Pacific Northwest right now. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll survive.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's about getting to the point where you just realize, like you said earlier, what doesn't matter. Like, we focus on things that matter. And, stuff like that, like airlines losing your luggage. I mean, especially since your anxiety medication is over there.
Oh, the irony.
But, we have you have zero control over that.
There's no point.
It's like, there's no point. And I think, it's walking that line of, I'm really pissed off about this. And also, I can do nothing about it.
Yeah. And just kind of where are you going to put that energy? Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. What about the changes in your body, right? Some good, some bad, some they just are. Like, what do we think about that?
Oh, man. We think that it's bullshit. No.
It's good that we're using the royal we now.
Right, the royal
we think.
Yes. It's hard because it's definitely both sides of the same coin, right? Like, on one hand, my mom never made it to 56. She died when she was 51. So I didn't get to really watch her age and talk to her about that experience. My stepmom, she lived to be 80. I think it's hard because, like we've talked about on our menopause episodes, every single one of them, it's like nobody really prepares women for what is in store, good, bad, or indifferent. And so I've been surprised with all of the changes that have happened to me physically, because of menopause. And also my joints hurt.
Yeah.
My skin is like crepey on my arms. My knees look weird. Things like that.
Yeah.
Conversely, I've never loved myself more. Yeah. Like, I've never looked in the mirror and I mean, honestly, like, I've never been more of the opposite of what the toxic beauty standards tell us is appropriate for women, right? I look at myself in the mirror and I don't fit that image of what society says is desirable, but I love myself so much. Like, I look at my belly and my baby's lived in that belly. Mm-hmm. And so I just feel like on one hand, it's really rough, the physical part, but on the other hand, it's the self-compassion that I have for myself has never been greater.
Yeah.
How about you?
So I went through kind of an interesting change because, like many women, I started gaining a bunch of weight, like right around like 50, and kind of, I wasn't going through menopause then, long story short. But we talked about this in the last episode. So I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. So long story short, it messes up your hormones and blah, blah, blah. So menopause is an extra special treat. But I got to the point where I'd put on so much weight and not doing anything differently, right? We talk about that as a side effect of menopause, that I just felt like I was like, who is this person in my body? Like, I didn't recognize my body. It didn't feel like mine. I didn't feel like I would run into things because I didn't have a good sense of where I stopped and the world began. And it just was so freaking disorienting. And so I started on this journey of, it wasn't necessarily about weight loss, but I mean, that was part of it, but that was what the breast reduction was a part of. And you can listen to that whole thing on the episode. And that was a big part of that, embracing that. And then we're also going to talk about this too. I started taking semaglutide, and yes, there's been weight loss, but it has felt more like a coming back home to my body kind of a thing. I'm like, oh, that's who she is, and that's what she does. And yeah, it's a little rustier than it used to be when I was 30, but I feel at home. Like I feel in my body. Because before, I'm not kidding you, I would literally just have this out of literally body experience just walking around. Like I don't feel grounded. I don't feel like in there. So that was a big part of it. In terms of like the physical stuff, like the one thing that I've noticed that has really, really changed a lot is I cannot drive for long periods of time. I used to do a lot of driving for my job, and I drive, and it was like 5 hours, like no problem. That is really hard for me now. If I drive more than, say, like 3 hours, I really got to stop. When I go up to Portland a lot, and that's like a 2.5 hour drive, I am toast when I'm done. Like I have learned when I have to do a lot of driving, don't plan on a lot of things afterwards because I will be exhausted. And it's more than just like when I'm traveling on planes and stuff. That's a different kind of thing. So just things like that, I think I've learned that is just not something to be trifled with, and I gotta go with the flow on that one. Is there anything that you have found that you're just like, that's different and I need to just kind of respect that?
Well, it's interesting because I reflect back to like when my dad was in his 50s and 60s because, I didn't get to see my mom really in her 50s and 60s, and he had chronic back pain. He has macular degeneration. He's basically blind in one eye, but he's constantly been in pain, like pretty much since his 50s. And I remember thinking, why don't you do something about that? Like, get that handled, right? And here I am in my 50s with back pain. And I have been dealing with this for probably 6 months. And there was a stint there where I was getting massages every week. And I don't know if they were working or not, but I got rid of those. I'm going to go to the chiropractor as my next thing. But my thought is, I never thought I would be at this place. Like, I feel like I'm too young to feel this old.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that for me has to do with I've just really started moving my body regularly and deliberately the past probably like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And that makes all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting when I was on my business trip this weekend, because I worked a lot last week. I was just like, oh, my body misses yoga. I was just like, I need to get back into yoga. And I think that's kind of what it's about for me is I just can't F around anymore. Like I just have to be more deliberate about it. Right. And yes, I need to be out walking and doing all that. And I don't have a good routine for that. But the yoga has been a real game changer for me, for sure. Like that needs to happen more. And now that I feel better and I'm not so heavy, I'm much more open to that. But I think that that's just the bottom line. Like, when we are in our 20s, 30s, and 40s, you could have a few drinks and get up and skip and whatever, and you were okay, right? But it has to be more planned and deliberate. Like you have to push yourself more. And I have the same experience with my dad. He's like 3 joint replacements due too late at this point at 84, and he can't walk really. And I tell my husband all the time, like, that is your role model. So figure it out, because there is still time left to make sure that you are vibrant and healthy and doing the things you need to do. But you gotta be deliberate about it. And that's a constant struggle, I think, for me. I'm aware of it. I want to do more about it. I'm not quite there yet, but I feel like at least I'm aware of it and I'm pushing myself.
And honestly, I feel like it's habits, like what we were raised with. The habits we were raised with, and also whatever habits we've developed over, the decades, are so hard. Like those are like almost in cement. Yeah. So making change takes dedication. Yeah. Whether it's diet, exercise, all of it. And that is literally what's going to keep us healthy longer. That's what's going to help our quality of life and our quantity of life. And we know this in our brain.
Yeah.
And it's putting that into action. And we in our house, we're definitely struggling with that. But
yeah,
let's change gears. Let's talk about emotional transitions, like into our 50s, because, midlife can bring anxiety and depression. It goes up for women in midlife. But also your self-awareness goes up too. So let's talk about emotional superpowers that we need or that we've relied on in our 50s, because I know for me, I definitely trust myself more. I am besties with my intuition, and I've relied on my intuition a lot, especially in knowing when to let things go, and also just not having the bandwidth for relationships or things that drain me anymore. What emotional superpowers do you think you've gained in your 50s?
The episode we did with my friend Sally, who is a psychic medium, talked about just the important role of intuition and how everybody has that and how important it is you listen to your intuition. And so I definitely think that that is stronger. I do feel like I have this conversation with myself when I'm like, you really shouldn't do that, or I don't know if that's a good idea. Like, I'm more willing to listen to it.
I think for me too, it's been like setting boundaries. Like I've gone through some shit in the past several years that have starting with my divorce, I think. And it just, when you go through big events and big things in life, that is when boundaries are more important than ever. And I think I've gotten really good in the past 10 years in setting boundaries, recognizing where they're not, and setting them. And that's a superpower, I think.
Yeah. And again, we're going to talk about this on this next episode, but we both talked about just the boundaries with our dads and just how triggering those are, and trying to process all of that. And I've recently become aware that my boundaries with him are not good, and I'm having to set clear ones, and really just understanding. Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely a superpower of it's not like, oh, you have to have boundaries. You have to have good boundaries. It's not that. It's like, no, you have to have good boundaries because you need to understand how you see yourself in the world and how you're going to allow yourself to be treated. And you are the only person that's going to be able to take a stand to make sure that people treat you the way that you want to be treated. And boundaries are the key to that.
Hey there, I'm Lisa Coricella McDowell, your midlife Pacific Northwest princess, here to guide you in the art of next leveling your life. I'm passionate about women's health and wellness in midlife, especially for moms parenting kids with unique needs like I do. I truly believe we can learn, grow, advocate, and care for the planet while taking care of ourselves and our families. And I'd love to help you do the same. Plus, I'm beyond excited to announce the launch of my new membership, the Empowered Parent Collective, this March. It's a space for parents to confidently advocate for their kids, build inclusive communities, educate themselves, and find balance and support along the way. To find out more about the Empowered Parent Collective, my classes, wellness offerings, parenting tips, advocacy resources, and exclusive Drinks with the Girls goodies, head to nextlevellifewithlisa.com. Let's survive and thrive in the messy middle together. Cheers.
So let's talk about something that people really don't talk about, and that is grief. And I just wrote a blog post about this. It's about the silent things that women grieve. We have the big ones, of course, when we lose people we love, but then there's all these little micro griefs that we deal with, and we don't really talk about it. But what do you feel like you've had to grieve or let go of in your 50s?
I think that there's been so many things I've just kind of had to accept and move on. I don't know. That muscle has gotten really strengthened, I think, as a special needs parent, because you really have to, I don't sit here and wallow in oh, what would have been, and oh, I wish my kid did that. I wish my kid did that. I'm totally over that, and I don't have the time to really think about that. So I think grief and what ifs look very different for me, because I think if I stayed in that place, it would be really hard to move forward. So I don't go there a lot of times, I guess, would be my best answer. And it's not like a la 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 la, but it's just grief does not serve me in a lot of ways in those areas. So I think I'm just hyper vigilant about that because I've had to put it in such a strong box. I don't know. I could just be, maybe I'm not making any sense, but
you are making sense.
That's just kind of my truth as I see it.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. And, I think the way that you look at grief and maybe handle it is other people do as well. And it's, you're protecting your heart. For me, like right now, I am acutely aware of grieving the time that is just freaking whizzing by. I look at that and I look at, yeah, we're going to be 57. I have family, my sister, two of my sisters actually, and some of my best friends are in their 60s. And it's like, okay, we are definitely getting into, like, we're stepping out of midlife into what's next. And so I'm definitely like grieving that time, and I'm grieving my youth, even though I don't want to be younger. I love being 56. Like, I feel so good about my age. When I think too long about it and really, sit with it, it's that mortality piece. It's like, wow,
It's a big existential kind of a thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, of course, I grieve people. I grieve the people, right? And it's not even just people that have died. It's, relationships that have changed. And I actually grieve my divorce. I don't wish I was still married to my ex, but I grieve that because that was like, I never thought I would be divorced. And I grieve that, I think maybe mostly for my kids, actually, because, because their parents aren't together. So that's a mom thing, I'm sure. But
yeah.
So I mean, I grieve, like, and I think we all do. It's like these not weird, but just like not common things, but are still losses and, things that leave a void, my good knees, my taut skin.
I was thinking about this the other day, and listeners, you're going to totally laugh. I was just like, can we still call it Drinks with the Girls midlife conversations when we're like in our 70s? Like, are people just going to be like, who do these people think they are? Like, what the hell? Like, will we have an archive version? Like, and I just kind of went down this rabbit hole, and I was like, I can't think about this right now.
Girl, my whole business is wound around midlife. Yes, believe me, I've thought about this once or twice.
Oh God, yeah. But I do remember when my mom passed, and I think I've talked about this on the episode. I had a big like existential grief kind of thing going on, like, and it was just, I was just like, death is around the corner, and that was a whole process for me to go through. And I don't necessarily think that I've come to the other end of that and been like, I'm good, but it was definitely, I think the fact that both of our moms died way too young, your mom for sure, and just, they were not the ones that everybody thought was going to go. Yeah. Like, out of that whole friend group, for sure. If people were going to lay bets, Renee and Patty were not going to be some of the early ones. And so that really threw me for a loop, because that was definitely not in the plan.
When you have somebody, a parent especially, that does not live the fullest extent of their life, into their mid 80s or beyond, whatever, I think it messes with you. I really do. I mean, it took me a long time. Like, I thought I didn't think I was going to make it past 51, and like logically it's like, well, sure, you can have a different lifestyle. You get your mammograms all the time, all the things, but it's like, I just had it in my mind that I wasn't going to make it. And so, I mean, at 56, I have a lot to celebrate, I feel. So, like, keeps me kind of charged.
Yeah. And I feel like this decade has been more deliberate, just in terms of being very aware of how precious time is, not because I'm squandering it, but because I want to be more purposeful about it, right? It makes me think of things like, do I really want to work in corporate America for 10 more years? Like, that's the kind of stuff that it makes me think of. Is just like, God, there are ways that I really want to spend the remainder of my life, and there are certain things that I really do not want to do. So those are the kinds of things I think about being deliberate with that time and really valuing it. And certain parts that I don't have control over, and certain parts I do have control over about it. So that's us. I think Karen alluded to the relationships piece of it, because we are not an island, right? We are an entity that people are pivoting in and out of our lives for various reasons. And those relationships change. That's just kind of kind of the way it is, right? Our relationships with our partners change, our kids, our friends, all of that. And it's a lot to process that. Like my son just turned 18 on Thursday. My daughter's turning 15 on tomorrow. And I can't quite believe it, really, on so many
Those are
different
big
levels.
kids. Big
Holy
kids.
moly, right? And, I run into these young moms all the time, and I'm just like, I sound like an old person. I'm like, blink and you're going to miss it. But it's just like, that visceral feeling of, like, I saw this mom with one of those baby carriers, and we were having a conversation about it, because I packed 2 kids around Africa. But I remember that feeling of, like, how they felt when they were strapped to my body and what I would do, and just all of that piece, right? And so they're certainly not strapped to my body anymore, but they need me in different ways, but that's changing, and just navigating and negotiating that, and what that all looks like is definitely keeping me on my toes, for sure.
That's like a gut punch. I was thinking about all the different relationships that have changed, friendships, obviously my marriage, dissolved. Those were the big ones, but the relationship with my kids and the metamorphosis that has happened with that over the past, well, probably since my kids were your kids' age, because that's really when it starts like shifting a lot. And I think now, like, my son's going to be 30, my daughter's turning 27 in a couple weeks, and, they're adults. But I still, walk this line of, they still need me, one more than the other. And how available am I going to be, and I don't know. It's just very interesting. And I was at a baby shower over the weekend, and I was talking to the mom to be and her cute little belly. And we were talking about, pregnancy, and I didn't like being pregnant. I wasn't one of those women, but I loved when that baby moved, when I could feel my babies moving in me. And when you said, just your kids were basically tethered to you, like, those are such beautiful experiences for parents, but for moms, like, it's just wild that my kids are as old as they are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm the shortest one in my family by a lot. It's like, wait, how did this happen? But yeah. And I mean, again, we've talked about this. I'm not going to jump too much down this rabbit hole, but my relationship with my son is going to be very different than a lot of people, because, he is probably going to live with us or be attached to us in a way that is much more significant than, most kids his age and growing up. And it's actually kind of cool. I do not mind at all that my son still wants to give me a big hug in public, right? He sent me a cute little picture when I was up in Alaska, and, very childlike in a lot of ways. And, if he was a neurotypical 18-year-old, I wouldn't be getting those pictures. And so there's really amazing, wonderful things to that as well. Another autism mama friend of mine said, and I think you can look this up. I don't think she made it up. I think it's a thing. When people say, don't you wish your child could be, quote unquote, normal or neurotypical? And there's this whole thing about, like, no, because I went to Holland instead of Germany or something like that. That's the way they phrase it, right? It's not like what could have happened. It's just, it's different. Right. And there's good and bad and other ways. And I think most moms with kids that have needs like that feel that same way. I think people think we sit there and we dwell on, like, what could have been, and we just don't, Mm-hmm. I mean, in our most frustrating moments, it's more about getting them what they need. But it's just like it is for any neurotypical child. Like, there's things you're frustrated with. There's things you really are happy about. It's just, you're not following the roadmap that everybody else is following. And that can be a challenge sometimes. The outside world just doesn't get it. And that probably is, in terms of things that are frustrating to me over the past few years, to bring it back a little bit, that's the part that just grinds in you after a while, where you're just like, oh God, really? That's exhausting. The things that I want and the things that give me pleasure, I think, are simpler now in a lot of ways. Like, I think about like a Friday, like my definition of a perfect evening is having a good meal with my husband, watching like a really cool British mystery, like in my pajamas, like with a glass of wine. Like life does not get better than that. Right now, do I like going out to eat? Absolutely. We love to travel. We love doing all those things. But that's another thing I've noticed in my 50s is that life gets simpler. You are much happier with just the simple pleasures of that kind of thing, right? I don't know. How about you, Karen? What do you think?
I think you're right. And it's bringing up something else in me that I can't really identify right now, but I think it's because I have moved here and our life is so simple and quiet just here, and we don't do a lot. Like I used to travel a lot. Like I used to, do a lot of fun travel, with my kids, with Tony, by myself, with friends. And I haven't really done that a whole lot. And there's lots of reasons, but I think, part of me misses that. But then when I'm in situations like that, I do miss the simpler things. You know what I mean? So it's almost like I feel like I want it. I feel like I want like my unhinged 40s again, but I really don't.
Well, and I think that's part of being in that transitionary phase, right? Where, when a snake sheds its skin, there's that ugly phase where it's just kind of lifting off and like it's half on and half off, right? And when you're in the middle of that transition, it's a little like hinky, things aren't lining up. And I mean, you've talked about this for a while, the fact that you are kind of in this transitional phase of, yep, you're glad you did the farm thing and all that, but you feel like something else is brewing. And I think that's just a natural part of that bubbling up.
Yeah. Well, and I think it has a lot to do with what's going on around me also. Like, my dad, I moved here to be closer to him. So that's been great, but I'm further from my kids, and then they're going to start having kids at some point. And so I'm going to be further from them. So I think about, because, I am the queen of overthinking. So I think things to death instead of just being, instead of just worrying about today and what's going on today and maybe tomorrow, but not worrying about, oh my gosh, in a few years, I'm going to have to, move closer to my kids, or, I should do this or I should do that. No. Okay, quick pause. Have we talked about the Pod Squad lately?
Oh, the Pod Squad. You mean our email list /VIP lounge /digital wine club?
Exactly. So listeners, if you're not on it yet, you're basically making life harder for yourself when it comes to podcasts.
Like trying to scroll for show notes while speed walking on a treadmill. Wait, what was that link again? Oh, no. Grab the side rails.
Or pulling up that book we mentioned while you're in the Starbucks line and then realizing everybody else moved up 3 cars and now you're that woman.
We've all been there. That's why we made the Pod Squad. You'll get new episode alerts every week with direct links. Easy to listen, easy to share.
And show notes straight to your inbox. So when we drop a life-changing product, book, hot tip, or yummy new drink, you're not rummaging through your memory like a woman searching for her reading glasses when they're on top of her head.
It's organized, it's helpful, it's for you, babes.
So join the Pod Squad. The link is in the show notes. Just tap it.
Snacks, sarcasm, solidarity.
And obviously, fighting the patriarchy.
We write at dawn.
Well, that kind of, touches on like the identity shifts that happen, I think when and in every decade, like I've talked to women and they are freaking thriving in their 60s. Like they're saying their 60s are the best decade yet. And so it's like, I think it's individual for sure. And it depends on what's happening around you in life. But I think, you definitely, or at least I'll speak for myself. I've gone through some significant identity shifts from my 40s, to my 50s. And now I'm sure I'll change again in my 60s.
And I also feel like my 50s kind of snuck up on me in terms of just like I wasn't prepared for how I would feel in a lot of good ways. I don't think my 60s are going to sneak up on me. I feel like I know what I need to do to be prepared to have a good, full life when I'm in my 60s, right? Whether I do that is a whole other topic, but that I don't feel like that's a big fat mystery. I know that I need to really get serious about getting in better shape, and I have, like, the surgery, like, that was a whole year of hell. Like, I really committed to a lot of that. So I definitely think I've started to do that. I think I need to be more purposeful about it. You know, I have ideas about, you know, how I want my business to look. So, you know, I don't have to be working in corporate America till I'm 80. You know, so there's things like that that I have to do and prepare. And I think that drives me a lot right now to really push myself way too hard, because I want to set myself up for that. But at the same time, I'm also like, I don't want to be grinding and pushing so hard that life just flies by. And I'm like, wait, what happened?
Yeah. I think I'm the opposite. I think I was so ready for my 50s. Like, I was so ready to be 50, which my besties will tell you, which is kind of surprising because, man, when I turned 40, I was a crabby patty. Woo. I was not about the milestone birthdays. I was not about getting older and celebrating. No, but something happened in my early 40s that I decided, you know what? You do need to celebrate every year. You need to celebrate birthdays. You need to celebrate these milestones. And so, yeah, when I turned 50, I was like, bring it on. And now here I am, almost 57. And I feel like, wait, what happened? Where did these 7 years go?
Totally. Same Z's.
Okay, let's talk about like careers, success, air quotes, purpose, and things like that. Have your values shifted around work, money, you know, and what do you think about success now versus when, you know, you were in your 20s or 30s?
Yeah. I mean, I was an educator for a big chunk of my 40s, and I look back and think, gosh, if I'd done what I did now, I would be in much better shape financially. So that certainly is something that I think about. I think that I have absolutely no desire to climb the corporate ladder anymore. I've done the manager thing. I've done all of that. And, you know, I look around me and my contemporaries, they are like the senior vice presidents and the things and that. But, like, you know, there were some manager roles that came up at work and I was like, oh, hell no. Like, I have no desire whatsoever. My plan, my kind of like climb the ladder thing is to get out and really make my own business be self-supporting. That's really where my focus is now with everything. So I see all these youngsters just grinding and hustling and doing all that. And I'm just like, God, it's just exhausting, you know? And I think about where I was when I was doing all that. And man, like, it's this whole idea of trading time for money is rough. It's rough. And I think a lot now about if I'd kind of understood that I didn't necessarily have to do that for as long as I did it, where would I be at this point? I feel like as a society, we're kind of at an inflection point with that, because it used to be go to school, get a really good paying job and grind, and that's the American dream, and then you'll be fine. And yeah, you can still do that, but you're not getting what a generation ago did when they did that. And there are a lot of people that are like, yeah, I don't need to take on the debt of private college for 4 years. I can start my own business now. And we are really thinking what is a credential for kind of being prosperous and successful in life. And to be honest, I'm here for it. I think that I talk about being a lifelong learner. I think that that's something that's really important. I love my alma mater, but I just don't necessarily see my daughter going to a 4-year Ivy League college as the way to get ahead in life. In fact, for her personally, I don't think it's the right move. So I think that has become much more nuanced. And boy, I mean, I'm sure you're in the middle of it with kids that you have now in their late 20s trying to figure out where their places are in the world, because it is by no means, I felt like when you and I grow up, like, we knew kind of what the recipe for success was. Like, we knew what we were supposed to do. It wasn't a big mystery. Yeah. Kids now, I just feel like it's the Wild West, you know, and my heart goes out to them. So I'm sure you've had a lot of conversations about that.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely have. And especially living in California, like my daughter, who's a teacher, is struggling to be able to make a living wage to live on our own. But I think you're right. Like when we were young, we knew what we needed to do. Check these boxes, and then we knew what we would get in the end. And now, like, the landscape looks so different. The traditional advice that I gave my daughter, because she loves kids, she's always wanted to be a teacher, and so her dad and I were always encouraging that. Always, you'll always have a job, you'll always have benefits, blah, blah, blah. And who knew when she'd be trying to find a job, there's a freaking job shortage for teachers.
She needs to move up here. She'd find a job in a second. And it's cheap to live, too.
Oh, man.
Cheaper.
I wish, yeah. When we think about success or not even success, but what you're quote unquote supposed to do to have the things that we're told are important, it looks different. The roadmap looks different.
Yeah, and I think, like, bringing it back, it's like that's kind of a question you have in your 50s, right? It's like, is this the part where I tie it up in a nice, neat little bow? Is that even possible? Like, what does that look like at this point in my life? It's not the, like, retirement and the gold watch and all that anymore. It's very different. But I do think that this decade consists of a lot of, when am I ready to leave that part of my life behind? Financially, emotionally, otherwise. And I'm here for that. Like, I got to figure that, because I'm done with the grind and hustle, for sure. I have to continue to do that to support my family. But this has definitely been the decade of, okay, how do I set myself up to make the choices I want to make for the rest of my life?
Yeah, and those are big. Those are big questions. I just had a girlfriend. She was a teacher, high school math teacher, retired last year at 56 or 55 at the time, actually. And so now she's just kind of like trying to figure it out. Like, how am I gonna live as a retired person? And she's loving it, by the way. It is different financially. So I think, when we're younger, we think you get to a certain age and everything is just easy breezy lemon squeezy. And that time, I just don't think ever comes.
Yeah. And I think it's more of a realism type of a decade. And I don't mean that in a downer kind of way, not like, oh God. I just mean, I think you just get real about things. Like, okay, if I want to retire early, what do I need to do? Let's figure it out. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think that the time for, like, yeah, it's here, and
it's upon us.
Yeah, and it's time to go for it and stop wasting time. I think is a big part of that as well.
And I think just that reality that, we talk about it. Oh, life is short. Life is short. We know this, and yeah. The older we get, we know it more. But I just think sometimes I'm literally overwhelmed with that feeling of, like, I have a client currently, and her mantra kind of right now for this stage in life is, why not?
Yeah.
Why the fuck not?
Yeah.
And I think when you really sit back and think about your mortality and how much time you do or don't have left, it's like, whatever it is you're thinking, whatever is in your dream box on your treasure map, whatever, is in your heart, why not?
Let's go,
Let's go.
And it's not a time is running out, although it is. And it's not even a now or never. I just feel like, what the heck are you waiting for? Like,
right. Like, zero things to wait for. Zero.
Let's go.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So let's wrap it up. Let's land the plane. If you are a woman in your 50s, and you might be if you're listening to this podcast, these are some things that we want you to know, because we like leaving you with some takeaways. I'm going to go first.
Okay.
So, you are allowed to change your mind. And guess what? You are also allowed to change your entire life. I've done it. It can be done. And I recommend it if that's what you're thinking, because being in your 50s is about, at least for me, it's about expanding It's not about shrinking. We're done with that. I have desires, I have needs, I have passions, I have wants, and they're going to be front and center. I'm not keeping them on the back burner. And like we were just talking about, why not? Take the step, be brave, get out of your comfort zone, and celebrate all the things. That's why we're celebrating 50 episodes of this
Whoop, whoop.
podcast, because we're celebrating all the things.
Yeah, oh my gosh, this is another big fat thing we did in our 50s.
That's right.
That was just not even in existence before now, for sure. Yeah, and we talked.
We birthed it.
Yes, we did, girl. And we talk about this too, just in terms of, women at this point in life feeling like the time for dreams is over. Boy, that is a big takeaway I want people to have. Like, oh my gosh, stop with that. Look at us. We freaking started a podcast. Like, what in the hell were we thinking? Like, what is this?
Okay, I read something today, and I'm going to mess it up. I know I am, but it's something about the Forbes, the top. I don't know if they're billionaires, multimillionaires, whatever they are, but the
rich
list
people.
on Forbes, the rich women, the women who were, let's say multimillionaires, right? And like, let's say there's like a list of 50 of them, whatever. 80% of them are in their 50s or older. So it's not too late. If y'all want to go out and be a multimillionaire, it's not too late.
Yeah. Start a podcast. Do the dang thing. I mean, to me, like, it all kind of comes full circle, right? Because we were talking about that. And I think in a lot of ways, that's why we wanted to talk about both these things on this episode. Like, this has been such a joy, and Karen and I are so locked and loaded into this. Like, this podcast feeds other people. It feeds us. Like, I look forward to it every week. Like, Karen and I have become besties in a way that we never were, like, before this. And this is a sacred time to us. And like when we plan our episodes and things like that, like, we are committed to this. Like, we have made this very kind of sacred commitment to this experience. And we do it because it helps other people, but it also helps us as well. And just kind of growing this thing from this little baby to what it's become is just, I mean, I think it's a completely apt representation of what can be done if you just don't sit the fork back and think it's all done.
Yeah, you just got to do it. You got to go for it. Absolutely. And you know what? I was thinking too, it's like, just because maybe, I mean, I feel like I've been in a weird season, like for the past year, like, I don't know, a little more depressed than normal, and it's like, okay, this doesn't mean the rest of my life is going to feel this way. This is a season. This is a stage. This is a chapter. Right. And it doesn't mean that's going to be this is the rest of my life. Yeah. I get to write the next chapter. I get to decide how my next chapter looks.
Yeah. And I feel that so deeply, because that's I go through that as well when I just go through periods of depression and frustration. And, it's been a rough few months on the Corachella McDowell household as well. And, I do feel that idea of, like, I think that's the problem with getting older is you're like, oh my God, it's going to be this way the rest of the time. Right?
Yeah.
We're still allowed to have seasons. We are still allowed to have, like, moments and pauses and shifts and things like that. Like that, there's plenty of time to have that and embrace that. That's not gone. And so I really sometimes have to talk myself off the ledge and be like, it's all good.
I love following women on Instagram who are like in their 80s and just freaking like having so much fun, so much joy, so much, it gives me energy and hope and, smiles.
You got to send me those so I can put those in the show notes. That sounds amazing.
Yes. Inspirational.
All right, y'all. Well, 50. Who'd have thunk it? So I hope tonight that everybody has thought about 50 as an episode, 50 as an anniversary and a celebration of where we're at, 50 as a number, as an age, as not a number, as an age. And all that way, all those different ways it can kind of be symbolic to you. But we're certainly buckled in and locked and loaded for the next 50, and certainly locked and loaded for the rest of our lives. So I hope everybody's going to take the journey with us. And please keep the reviews and everything coming. We love it when you guys give us reviews, good or bad, right? Keep the topics coming. All of it. It helps us plan the different things that we feel like you guys want to listen to. And frankly, it's one more episode that we don't have to come up with. Like, we want to be relevant to you. So please keep doing that. Share. Like, we have a YouTube channel. Check it out in the podcast show notes. So the audio podcasts are now on YouTube, but we also are doing a video. So you get to see what we really are like on a Monday night when we've just decided not to brush our hair and say, screw it. This is definitely an IRL version. Yeah. There's no Kardashian level here.
No filters.
Like, I put on lip gloss. That was about the sum total of like presentable. So if you prefer your version IRL, check us out and our YouTube channel. So we have the shorts on there that you guys have seen in terms of the promos that are out there on social media. Those are on YouTube. And then we have the long form videos now as well. So super duper. Karen, anything else you want to add?
I just want to thank you listeners so much for being with us for these 50 episodes. We hope that you've had as much fun as we have. We've had some pretty fun episodes, great guests, lots of laughs, a few tears. And we're just here. We're here for the real talk. And we're so glad that you're here with us. So share with a girlfriend, please. Let's keep growing this community. And here's to the next 50. Cheers.
Cheers.